Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor, and I'm also joined, I think this might be the first time ever, with a co-host.
That's right. Leila Yari here. Thank you, Jared, for having me on with you.
Super excited. And we're joined by a special guest, Gregg, the founder and CEO of Gales. Rob,
Great
how's it going?
Great to be here. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's been a great week.
We're super excited to have you here. I know Leila and I are really excited to dive more into Gales and learn more about your background. So let's kick it off. Tell us about you and the company, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I'd say first and foremost, most important thing in my life, just got married a couple of weeks ago. So pretty excited to have earned my gold medal. That's my proudest one. But yeah, with Gales, thank you so much. I don't know if there's video that goes with this. If there's not, my smile is beaming, and it's largely due to my wife. I would consider myself an accidental footwear founder. I used to work 16-hour days in dress shoes, which for just crushing my feet. And I figured there's got to be a better way. So put an image online, 250,000 hits on the design, linked up with a local Italian master craftsman. He goes, yeah, I can make you these shoes. He quoted me more than I'd probably saved up within a year off my minimum wage. And so I cut him a deal and volunteered over the next 4 months and became a shoe cobbler. And through that process, I learned really not much has changed in how shoes are made. And I was questioning some hundreds of years of age-old craftsmanship and made a shoe that flexed and breathed and felt like socks. And so that was, almost 11 years ago, just as a passion project. And that took a life of its own, working with celebrities, red carpets, donated a lot to charity through that organization as well. All the while I was building direct-to-consumer brands. And then when the pandemic hit, that was really the pivotal moment for Gales. A very personal life event. Someone close to my family is 30 years old, got sick with COVID. And we got the phone call on a Monday morning saying his body's shutting down. We're going to have to put him into a coma. Thankfully, his care nurse suggested he try this new type of ventilator that Ford Motors had developed. So he was the first patient to pilot it. And because of his care nurse's thoughtful suggestion, that ultimately saved his life the next 5 days in the ICU. And so for various reasons, I still get chills, fundamentally changed around my perspective on life, on the world, on healthcare. It's not something that I had a huge amount of involvement in prior, but I wanted to. And so I ended up getting connected with SONCL, Society of Neuroscientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders, specifically Rebecca Love, who I'd love to talk about as well, as one of our very first advisors to the brand. But started with financial donations, time donations, became a mentor coach. And that's when we really learned about this problem with shoes. The fact that in the ER and the ICU, there's no provision of shoe covers. So if you've got fluids spilling off the tops of the tables onto your Nikes, Adidas, Hokas, Crocs, you name it, it's going straight through to your skin. And if you're unfortunate enough to have a cut, scrape, or blister on your foot, it's a really easy pathway for infection. So that's where it started, was this shocking realization that nothing had been done. I found myself uniquely positioned to find a solution, and through some interesting cold calls and knocking on some doors way out of my ballpark and league, I ended up connecting the dots, crowdsourced developing with over 1,500 nurses and healthcare professionals our first designs, and we launched it. And we're really proud to say we're actually nominated for Nurse Brand of the Year this year on nurse.org. We'll find out in a couple of weeks how we did. But really listening to the pain points and challenges of the community, what exists, what's missing, how can we create a product with you, for you, that solves the real true pain points from, honestly, one of the most overlooked, underappreciated, and not just during COVID eras, long before and currently and long after as well. And something for me as well that I think is important for non-nurses to listen to is, without nurses and without healthcare, the whole rest of the world is in a pretty bad spot. And so it's arguably one of the most important classes of people who do incredible things and literally save lives. So for us to be able to step up, put a little bit more comfort and care into their days, hopefully translates and puts a little bit of breath and levity into an otherwise very challenging profession.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's an incredible story as to why it is that you started this company. It's really inspirational. Can you share a little bit about what goes into the design and comfort process of designing these shoes?
Yeah. So it starts with crowdsourcing. So we have focus groups, we have an ambassador group. We have a chief nursing officer as well on our team. Her name's Raquel Perez, wonderful TEDx speaker as well. Happy to send you guys the link. But it starts with listening to the community and really figuring out what are real problems we can solve. We don't think about shoes as a fashion statement. Well, we have some fashionable shoes and we've got some new designs we're launching. It's really about the most important part of your uniform. It's where your body comes into contact with the ground. That large in part has been overlooked by the footwear industry. So it started with understanding pain points. And then what's unique to our process, so we use an injection molded compound called XL Extra Light. And I wish I could say I had the genius idea of using this in the shoes for the reason that I'm about to tell you about. To be honest, we just got lucky. And the specific properties with this compound, it acts the opposite of the way that running shoes, athletic shoes, and pretty much all shoes are built to date. And that concept that shoes are traditionally built with is high energy return. And it makes sense. They're running shoes, they're basketball shoes, they add spring to your step. What that means is it stores energy and puts it back in your body. It's great to propel you forward. It adds added pressure on your knees, back, and joints, which compounds over a long 12, 16 plus hour day. So our shoes do the opposite. It's more like an airbag than a trampoline. When you step on it, it disperses energy, keeping your knees, back, and joints a lot better protected. So at the end of a 12-hour shift, you feel a whole heck of a lot better than you would stepping into those athletic shoes that feel really cushy on hour 1, but by hour 16 are just crushing your feet. And what we're really excited about, beyond just, yeah, it's a nice thing to say in marketing, but we're really pushing the envelope to go further. So we're working with Johns Hopkins right now on 2 IRBs, clinical studies around the efficacy of our shoes treating common foot problems derived from pressure and long-term shifts on your feet like metatarsus and plantar fasciitis. And we're also studying the effects of our shoes on the human being, both emotionally and physically, over the course of a long day. Seeing, okay, in standard shoes versus Gale shoes, what is the overall impact on the body, health, and wellness? And with these studies, what we hope to push forward is really put this out there into the medical community and even as far as into the OSHA regulated industries that are designed to protect employees. And what's interesting is protection usually is thought of as steel toe or puncture resistant, but protection should really go to the overall human being. When you're in a profession, when you're on your feet for 20, 30 years, a lot of times when it comes time retirement, you can't really enjoy yourself because your body's taken such a beating. And so we really want to push forward, not just for our shoes, but for the uniform in general, something so critical as your footwear, the way that employers see it, the way that regulatory industries see it, to do a lot better by our employees who are standing for a living.
And so you're kind of looking to branch out from, not branch out, but sort of encapsulate more industries that goes beyond nursing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we love getting our customer reviews and testimonials, and some really interesting professions popped up that we hadn't planned for, but we found a natural audience in food processing plants, bartenders and chefs, warehouse workers. And so what's really amazing is because of the healthcare community that we've developed this with and taking that health angle, we're going to be offering this footwear in Q1 of next year to a lot broader audience to help take what we've learned within the healthcare environment and provide a healthier environment to bartenders, waiters, chefs, healthcare, hospitality, with shoes, again, that are designed both to slip resistant and easy to clean, but also designed to disperse impact and energy so that half the world's population, 1.8 billion people who stand for a living, to be able for the first time to give them footwear that's designed to be stood on.
Rob, you're the real deal. You're the real deal. I've done over 1,000 of these, and there's no ums, there's no ahs. There is just pure excitement when you're talking about everything that is being asked towards you. And that, I mean, Leila and I obviously have been on also like the running the companies, but also on the investing side of it. And that is the part, right, from the investor point of view, Leila, that gets so excited when you see that pure excitement. And I mean, you obviously have a lot to be excited about, right? You just got married. There's all this progress. You have these partners. So I just had to quickly say that. And sorry, Leila, you were going to say something as well.
No, I was going to say, well, Gales is the first investment that my fund has done. And so it was a hell yes, like 100%. Everybody, all the LPs were so excited. And the turnout on the vote to invest in the company was just stellar. It's 100% yes. So that's, and I hope to bring more Robs actually to the fund for our LPs to invest in. But yeah, it really comes through your enthusiasm and the passion that you have for what you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, honestly, because I've worked in a lot of industries, I've got a pretty interesting background, covered a lot of different fields. But there's just a genuine spark when it came to helping give back that, yes, it was exciting to see shoes on celebrities and to build these companies from nothing to unicorn status. But honestly and genuinely for me, there's been no greater gift and excitement than checking in on our customer support emails and reading a note that says, I've been in this industry for 20 plus years, and this is the first time that I can go home without my back hurting. And to me, to be able to create a thing that other people get to enjoy that has a real benefit in their lives. If we talk about legacy, that's what I hope and pray for, is to be able to have that impact in a positive way. That's something that's a need to have, not just a nice to have.
One of the things, Rob, that's really exciting when I hear you explain the company and what you're building is, a few years back, I feel like we had a scrubs moment in healthcare, right? Where there was really starting to be some innovation. But what you're doing has much larger health impacts than just stylish and comfortable scrubs. So as it relates to, and I know you're going into some other spaces, but as it relates to healthcare, let's talk about the importance of being comfortable. But then you already shared a little bit about the health aspects of what you're doing. But in terms of comfortability, that was obviously a big thing when it came to scrubs. Why is it important, to be comfortable while working in healthcare with the shoes you wear?
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefits should be pretty clear and obvious. Is if you're uncomfortable at work, the care that you're providing to the individuals, it's going to take a hit. And as big of a heart you have and great a spirit as you have, if you're physically uncomfortable in the job, like divisions of nurses we're talking to that have to work in really physically demanding areas like flipping patients, that's a lot of strain. And to feel physical pain in your body while you're trying to do that, it just makes your job exponentially harder. Now, think about doing that going in day over day over day and weekends and long hours. It adds up really quick. And something that we've taken a look at as well for the profession is there's a lot that has happened and a lot that's gone through with COVID and the pandemic that's made it challenging. We've seen increase in burnout, a lot of fatigue, and that's a real issue, not just for the industry as a whole, but for the human beings that work these jobs. I can't imagine going to work and being physically in pain to try to just get by and do my job. Now, when we look at the nursing profession and healthcare profession, it's very physically demanding. It's a full-time athletic sport. And I don't know that the outside world necessarily recognizes or realizes that, but you put a lot of miles in on the day. There's a lot of physical demand in the job. And so when we take a look at shoes specifically and comfort specifically, I can't imagine an athlete going out in the field with improper footwear. Their game would suffer, their team would lose. And so similarly, so as we look at healthcare as a whole, the teams in the organizations, we need to be taking care of them the same way that we take care of anybody else that's in a physically demanding in other cases sport, but in this case profession, that has a meaningful impact on human life.
And Rob, there's also the issue of just infections in the healthcare setting and in the hospital setting. And there were a couple of stories that you shared with me early on in terms of why you started this company. Would you mind sharing those?
Yeah, pretty eye-opening. I myself still regularly do 30-minute recorded interviews just because I think it's important to know, well, first, what is the problem we're solving? But second, are we actually solving that problem to the best of our abilities? It's how we learn. We've introduced a second product to market. We've got a third product coming to market that goes through that iterative loop. But I'll never forget one of the first interviews that I had. She shared a story how she was in the emergency room, a gunshot wound came in up in San Fran, and blood unfortunately spilled off the table onto her Nikes. Well, she had a blister on her foot, and because that fluid happened to be HIV positive and get through the tops of her shoes, she's now unfortunately an HIV positive nurse just from showing up and doing her job. And my question to her was, well, A, I'm so terribly sorry to hear that, but what has changed in the healthcare system, let alone your individual unit? And the answer was nothing. So that just shocking fact to me said, okay, here's, if ever there was a sign and a call to action to step up and do something, this is crazy that nothing has been done. And then we're hearing stories like with Rebecca. She'll share this story as well. She left her shoes on her front doorstep, and her young daughter, who was 3 at the time, picked them up and chewed on them, got rushed to the ICU with C. diff, potentially life-threatening disease. And when you think about it, where do all sick people go? They go to the hospital. Well, if they're coughing or sneezing or bleeding, where does all that go? It collects on the floor. So not only are individuals that are working in the hospital, but we as humans going in and out of the hospital, all of that's getting picked up by our shoes, and it's walking out the door with us. No one even thinks to wipe your shoes or to clean them off. And so when we took a look at, I mean, the more we dug in, it's kind of one of those, do I really want to know how bad this is? But the hospital floors, they actually did swab tests, are dirtier than toilet seats in public bathrooms. So when you think about that and when you hear about that and you go, okay, yeah, it makes sense. What can we do about this? I'd love it if we get blue lights in and can clean every step that's ever done. We're working on ways that we can progress towards it. But in the interim, at the very least, we should be protecting the individuals working in hospitals from very common spills and fluids and disease that every other footwear tested. We just published a clinical study with hospital epidemiologist Victor Lang, tested all the common shoes worn in the hospital setting. Every single shoe, except for Gale's, had strike-through. It's a simulated glow germ. It's built on the tops of the shoes. And when you put a black light on it, went straight through the socks, went straight through to the skin. Every single shoe that was worn except for Gale's shoes. So just the sheer contact aspect with what we're building alone is a huge barrier and step up. You wouldn't do surgery with paper towels on your hands or gauze on your hands. You needed to protect it. Well, think about, where does all the fluid spill? Right on the floor, right on your shoes. And everybody's wearing shoes with holes or big mesh targets, and it just doesn't make sense.
And can we talk a little bit about sort of the cleaning process and how that works for these shoes?
3 seconds or less. Wipe the top, wipe the bottom, call it a day. They're antimicrobial, easy to clean. You can put them in the washing machine, both the insoles and the outsoles. We've got clean rooms, biomedical research facilities, pharmaceutical compounding groups that they step in a bleach bath and step out. Easiest thing in the world to clean.
Amazing. And I know you have some amazing influencers. Can we talk a little bit about them as well?
Yes. So it runs the gambit from micro all the way up to Nurse Blake, who we're really fortunate to be partnering with, not only because it's an amazing collaboration, but he's an amazing human. It's something that we internally live by from both our investors, our teammates, the individuals we work with. We call it the Awesome Humans Club. Probably not the first to do it, but it sits really well in our hearts. But Nurse Blake is just an awesome human. We met him through his manager and agent. And before we ever did a deal, I said, well, I'd love to just sit down in a room, hear a little bit about what makes him tick. And there's a lot. As much as there is public about him, there's probably a lot that most people don't know that just really warmed my heart. And even when we went outside of Cedar Sinai to surprise employees, just we popped up, we did a post, we had over 300 people in a line and we handed out shoes, but he showed up with a Starbucks gift card out of his own pocket and finances for every single person that came out just to say thanks for what they do. And so he's really a saint, incredible human, so amazing to work with. Hilarious, by the way. His comedy tour, I went up to go see it. I don't think I've laughed that hard in the past couple of years. So it's people like Nurse Blake. It's charity organizations as well. We donate a portion to Make-A-Wish through that shoe. We partner with Alex's Lemonade Stand as well. Incredible story. You should look it up. A young girl fighting cancer set up a lemonade stand in her front yard, and that kicked off a national movement that ended up raising over $250 million for pediatric cancer research. So we've got a shoe that's dedicated there, and everything that we do, we try to find awesome people doing good in the world. And if we can come together to make 1 + 1 = 3, that's the goal. And we feel very fortunate to be in this position, to be working with everyone like a Nurse Blake, like an Alex's Lemonade Stand, like a Rebecca Love on our advisory board, like our Chief Nursing Officer, Raquel Perez. Like, I could go on and on of all the influencers and ambassadors that we work with as well, but just a really amazing group of humans.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, we're happy to be part of the Awesome People's Club too. Is that what you call it? I love it.
Awesome humans, yeah.
As we wrap up a little bit, thanks, by the way, so much for joining Leila and myself on this episode. What's next for Gale? Obviously, there's a lot to be excited about. You mentioned a little bit about also going into some spaces outside of healthcare to kind of kick off next year. But is there anything else you want to share in terms of what's next that really excites you?
It's all based on the product, honestly, taking feedback. I think the first one that we introduced to market, I'm really proud of. And then hearing feedback through those 30-minute recorded interviews, customer reviews, testimonials, emails, being live in the world, that really fueled our V2. We added in wider widths, more breathable, holes, different styling. And then with our V3 that I'm really excited to introduce to market, we've got a shoe that could probably give a lot of fashion brands a run for their money on the runway, honestly. And they've taken the best of V1 and V2. We've added a lot more breathability while still remaining protective. We've further increased the coefficient of friction. This is a big one. We found that consumers wearing them in oily environments, for example, need a higher degree of friction with the bottoms. So we've got a light duty, a mid duty, and a heavy duty that we're going to be introducing to market. And ultimately, the goal is to figure out what are these problem areas in standing professions that we're uniquely positioned to solve. And we've onboarded as well. One of our new investors is our chief design officer now as well. His name is Richard Ward. Brings an incredible design background from pick a logo, any logo. He's probably worked with them. Influencing some really creative design that I think the touch and feel and look, be really proud to wear these shoes out on the street. And that's really the next phase and evolution of the company is, yes, we've checked the box with these are great to wear in the workplace. Let's create the total day shoe. You can wear them in, wear them out, go out on date nights and feel proud to be standing in your shoes.
And we really love the name of the company. I don't know if we covered where it comes from, but would love to sort of end with that.
Yeah, Gale's is named after Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. When it came to us, it just really made sense. And a personal story for me as well. Two things. One, my great-grandpa was actually a shoe salesman for Walkover Shoes and lived in Shanghai, China, which I didn't find out about until about 3-4 years into my footwear journey. And I look at mom and dad and go, so probably have been some useful information out a few years ago. But his son, and I'll skip that whole story. It's a really fun story about that, maybe for another episode. But his son, my grandpa, went on to enlist to become the medical commander for the Allied forces. And he served for 32 months. And so I've got both a footwear background, a healthcare background, and just paying homage to how this got started in the first place. It was courageous people that were doing way outside of the box. There was a lot of limitations around them. There was a lot of hardships they had to endure. And these are the individuals that said, forget that, I'm going to do it anyway. And we think that Florence Nightingale did a phenomenal job of that. So we're really proud and honored to be able to take a little bit of that legacy with the Gale's name and push that forward into the nursing profession and beyond.
Love it. Well, Rob, again, thank you so much for joining us both on the Slice of Healthcare podcast, and excited to have you on again in the near future.
Would love to.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.